He fought for his country, wore the uniform with pride, and risked his life for freedom. But on a quiet street in his own hometown, none of that mattered. Police saw only his skin, not the soldier. He was arrested in front of everyone, but one phone call turned the entire story upside down, and it cost them everything. Marcus Williams had dreamed of this day for months, the moment he would return home after serving overseas for nearly 3 years. A proud U.S. Army veteran, Marcus had completed multiple tours in dangerous zones, carrying out missions that had tested not only his strength but also his heart. Now, finally back on American soil, he felt a deep sense of peace. That morning, he carefully put on his military uniform, the same one he wore when awarded his service medal, pressed neatly, polished boots shining, and his name tag sitting just right. He looked in the mirror, smiled, and said to himself, "Let's surprise Mom." Marcus had chosen not to tell his family about his return. He wanted to walk through the front door and see the pure joy on his mother's face. She had prayed for his safety every single night, and today, he was finally coming home to hug her. On the way, he stopped at a small local grocery store to buy her favorite flowers, bright yellow lilies. As he walked through the parking lot holding the bouquet, people nodded, smiled, and even said thank you for your service. He returned, each smile with kindness. The sun was shining. The day felt perfect. For a moment, everything felt just right, like the world had paused to give him the welcome he had earned. But as Marcus reached his car, he noticed a police cruiser drive slowly past him, then make a sharp U-turn. His instincts, honed from years in the military, told him something wasn't right. 2 officers stepped out of the car, watching him closely. Marcus stayed calm, assuming they might just be checking in. After all, he was a soldier, in uniform with ID in his pocket. What could go wrong? He had no idea that within minutes, this proud day would take a turn so sharp it would change not only his life, but the future of everyone involved. As Marcus unlocked his car and placed the bouquet gently on the passenger seat, the police cruiser came to a full stop behind his vehicle. The 2 officers inside, both white, mid-40s, stepped out slowly, hands resting near their holsters, faces cold and unreadable. Marcus turned around and gave a polite nod. "Good morning, officers," he said, standing tall in his decorated uniform. One officer didn't reply. The other narrowed his eyes. "Is this your car?" he asked, his tone sharp. Marcus replied calmly, "Yes, sir, it's registered in my name. My ID and paperwork are in the glove box if you'd like to see them." But instead of listening, they asked a different question. "Why are you wearing that uniform?" Marcus raised his eyebrows, slightly confused. "I just got home from a deployment," he explained. "I'm a staff sergeant in the U.S. Army. I served overseas," but the officers didn't look convinced. One of them muttered something to the other. Marcus could feel the shift in the air. What should have been a simple moment had become tense, uncomfortable, and strangely threatening. "We've had reports of stolen valor in the area," one officer said, stepping closer. "Mind stepping aside while we verify your identity?" Marcus's chest tightened. He had nothing to hide, but something about the way they looked at him like he was already guilty made his stomach churn. "I have my military ID right here," he said, slowly reaching into his wallet, careful not to move too fast. He held it out. They barely glanced at it. "Step away from the vehicle," the officer said again, firmer now. Confused and frustrated, Marcus stepped back. "Sir, I've done nothing wrong," he said softly. "This uniform is not a costume." But the truth didn't seem to matter. Their eyes weren't on his medals or his service patches. They were only on his skin. People began to notice. A couple standing near the store entrance paused, whispering, but no one stepped in. In that moment, Marcus realized this wasn't about questions. It was about suspicion and the silent threat behind it. Before Marcus could say another word, one of the officers suddenly reached out and grabbed his arm. The movement was aggressive, not cautious, like they'd already made up their minds. "Put your hands behind your back," the other officer ordered, already pulling out a pair of handcuffs. "You're under arrest for impersonating a military officer." Marcus stood frozen for a second, shocked. "Sir, I am a military officer. Check the ID I gave you. That's real," he said firmly, trying to keep his voice calm. But the officer twisted his arm, forcing it behind his back. The cold metal of the cuffs snapped tightly around his wrists. A small group of people had gathered by now, some with their phones out, recording. An elderly woman gasped. A teenage boy shouted, "He's a soldier." But the officers didn't care. "We'll get this sorted out at the station," one of them said dismissively. Marcus didn't resist. His training taught him to stay calm under pressure, even when being humiliated in the middle of a parking lot. Wearing the very uniform he had bled for, his medals jingled against his chest as they pushed him forward. The flowers he had bought for his mother had fallen to the ground, petals scattered on the pavement. A deep shame began to rise in his chest, not because he had done anything wrong, but because they didn't even try to understand. They saw a black man in uniform and assumed it was fake. They didn't ask where he served, what unit he belonged to, or who could verify his identity. They didn't see a hero, only a threat. As Marcus was placed in the back of the police car, staring out at the people who stood watching in silence, one thought echoed in his mind. If this can happen to me, in uniform, in my own country, what hope do others have? His heart pounded, not with fear, but with something stronger. He didn't know it yet, but justice was already on its way, and all it would take was one phone call to start a fire they couldn't put out. Inside the police station, Marcus sat quietly in a cold holding room, his wrists still red from the tight cuffs. His uniform was wrinkled, and his pride bruised, but his spirit hadn't broken. The officers outside laughed casually, still calling him a fake soldier under their breath. One of them walked by the small cell window and smirked, as if this was just another easy arrest. Marcus didn't yell or beg. Instead, he looked up, breathed deeply, and asked the desk officer for his phone call. Reluctantly, they handed him a phone. He dialed a number from memory, one he hadn't called in months. The line rang once, twice. Then a calm but commanding voice answered, "General Hayes speaking." Marcus sat up straighter. "Ma'am, it's Marcus Williams. I'm calling from the Barrage police station. I've been arrested. They said I'm impersonating a soldier." Silence. Then her voice came back, low and deadly serious. "Stay calm. I'm handling this right now." The call lasted less than a minute. Marcus hung up, gently placed the phone down, and folded his hands. Outside, everything seemed normal for a few more minutes, but then the shift began. A phone rang at the front desk, not just any line, but the private line in the chief's office. Moments later, the police chief burst through the hallway, eyes wide, shouting orders. "Where is the man you brought in? Williams, get him out of that cell now." The arresting officers looked confused. "Sir, he was impersonating. He's not impersonating anyone." The chief snapped, "That man served in Afghanistan, under General Hayes herself. You two just arrested a decorated war hero." Panic swept through the station. Papers flew. Doors opened and slammed. In minutes, Marcus was released, his uniform straightened by shaking hands, and water offered with forced smiles. But he didn't touch it. He looked each of them in the eyes and said firmly, "You didn't see a soldier, you saw what you wanted to see." The silence that followed was louder than any apology they could offer. The damage was already done, but the real consequences had only just begun. The mood inside the police station flipped like a switch. Just moments ago, Marcus had been treated like a criminal. Now, officers scrambled around him, stammering out nervous apologies, suddenly trying to sound respectful. One of them even brought a chair and asked if he needed medical attention, but Marcus didn't respond. He stood tall, still, in uniform, the marks from the cuffs visible on his wrists. The police chief walked in, sweat on his brow, trying to smooth the situation. "Sergeant Williams, I want to personally apologize for what happened here today," he began, voice tight. "There's been a misunderstanding." Marcus looked at him, unmoved. "This isn't a misunderstanding, it's a pattern," he said quietly but clearly. "You saw the uniform, you had my ID, but you chose to see a threat." The chief tried to speak again, but Marcus raised a hand to stop him. Outside the station, news had already begun to spread. One bystander's video had gone viral within hours, showing Marcus being handcuffed in uniform, medals on his chest, face calm as officers pulled him away. The headline hit fast: "Veteran arrested while in uniform, accused of being a fraud." The public response was instant. Social media exploded with anger. Fellow veterans, activists, and everyday people began demanding answers. Calls flooded the police department. News vans parked outside. The mayor was alerted. And back in Washington, General Hayes issued a public statement, defending Marcus and condemning the officers' actions. That same night, the officers involved were placed on immediate suspension pending investigation. Their names and faces were already circulating online, met with outrage and disappointment. Inside, Marcus quietly gathered his belongings. As he walked out of the station, past the crowd of reporters and flashing cameras, he didn't speak. He didn't need to. His presence, dignified, composed, and unshaken, spoke louder than anything. The same people who had watched him be taken away were now witnessing the beginning of a reckoning. The truth had hit hard, and the ripple effects were only starting. The fallout came faster than anyone expected. By morning, Marcus's story had reached every major news outlet in the country. The video taken by a bystander was now the top story on television, radio, and social media. Headlines screamed, "Decorated Black Veteran Wrongfully Arrested in Uniform." The image of Marcus handcuffed.com, medals gleaming on his chest, became a symbol of something much deeper, the silent injustice many had faced, but few had seen so clearly. Interviews with his military commanders confirmed everything. His service record was spotless, his awards were real, and his rank was earned with blood, sweat, and years of sacrifice. Veterans organizations, civil rights groups, and celebrities voiced outrage. Thousands marched outside the police department with signs that read, "Respect those who serve, and justice for Marcus." Under intense pressure, the city held an emergency press conference. The mayor, visibly shaken, apologized publicly. In the weeks that followed, Marcus Williams became a name known across the country, not as a victim, but as a symbol of strength, dignity, and quiet resistance. But Marcus never let the attention change him. He didn't chase interviews or praise. Instead, he focused on something more meaningful, using his story to spark change. When invited to speak at a local high school, he hesitated, then agreed. Standing before students of every background, he shared what had happened, not with anger, but with purpose. "I wore this uniform to serve my country," he said, "but I learned that some battles don't end overseas, some start right here at home." His voice was steady, his message simple. Respect must go deeper than appearance, and justice must be more than a word. From that moment on, he was invited to speak at universities, community events, and even police training academies. His message reached people who had never thought about how quick judgment could ruin a life. He never named the officers, never used the stage for blame, only to build understanding. "Don't be afraid to see people clearly," he told one crowd. "The uniform didn't protect me from bias, but your awareness might protect someone else tomorrow." Over time, the city began to heal. Real reforms were made, officers were retrained, and young people, especially black youth, felt seen, heard, and proud. As for Marcus, he returned to a quieter life, spending more time with his mother, volunteering at the local VA center, and planting a small garden behind her house. Something peaceful, something steady. The flowers bloomed slowly, bright and patient. Like healing, he never sought revenge, he sought meaning. And in the end, he got it, not through rage, but through truth, courage, and the strength to stand tall when everything around him tried to knock him down. Marcus's story didn't just end with justice, it began a new chapter for many others. And that, perhaps, was the greatest victory of all. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and share your thoughts. Subscribe. Two Deep Wounds for more powerful true stories that deserve to be heard.